Episode 1. The doorbell chimes. "The cupcakes from Magnolia are here!" shouted Mrs. White with a hint of excitement in her voice. She opened the door to receive the parcel and proceeded down the hallway, making her way to the kitchen. She was loud enough for Sophia, her eldest daughter, to hear. She sat on her bed and softly repeated to herself, "The cupcakes are here." And why wouldn't they be? Sophia's parents were expecting guests, special kinds of guests, the ones you would lay a spread out for, or the ones who would get to use the good type of crockery. As her mother went from sweeping the foyer to fluffing up the pillows, Sophia dug deeper into her bed. She thought about how her parents were adamant about getting her married. When she was in college, it was easier for her to brush it off by telling her parents she was still studying. But as time went by, Sophia couldn't keep up with her excuses to protect herself or reasons to do with her life as she pleased. College didn't let her miss home in Chicago. Even though she wouldn't admit it to her parents, living with them wasn't her first choice. One couldn't deny that Sophia's parents grew impatient with her over the years. Her mother, Ellen White, married her father at 19. Naturally, Sophia's fleeting age was becoming an area of concern. However, Mr. and Mrs. White couldn't be written off without credit. They had decided to let their daughter explore the world on her own. But when she never brought home a boy or dated someone worthwhile, they began to worry. Sophia's flashbacks to the past was quickly taken over by 3 loud knocks on her bedroom door. She looked over at the door and let out an inquisitive, "Who is it?" knowing full well that it was her mother. Her mother opened the door without an answer, already comfortable with invading spaces that were meant to be left alone. But she knocked, so that's something. Sophia didn't move from her safe burrow of sheets, but her eyes followed her mother as she advanced towards the curtains and drew them far wide. The bright light was too much. Too much for the mood Sophia was in anyway. "Come on now, Sophia, honey. You're still in bed. This is no time to be in bed. The Benjamins will be here for brunch in no less than an hour." The Benjamins. Ah, yes. Sophia couldn't gather enough strength to say what she actually wanted to say, so she sat up instead. She looked down at her hands, the fuzz on her hands golden with the foreign light from the windows. The warmth felt nice. But the moment was soon run over when her mother began to rummage through her closet. "Can you not look through my things?" Sophia finally managed to speak up. "Oh, nonsense! I have no interest in your things, Sophia. I just want you to look nice for brunch." "For brunch? Or the family you're so interested in shipping me off to?" Her mother paused. Her face was still facing the closet. "Both," she replied after a full 5 seconds. Sophia looked directly at her, then at the back of her head. Her mother turned with a pale blue dress in her hand and neatly laid it on the bed, realizing her response was uncalled for. "Look, Sophia, I know this seems like we're forcing something on you." "But you are forcing this on me," Sophia snapped back. "Let me finish." Her mother said this in a defensive tone. "Your father and I want the best for you. We always have. We've given you everything you've wished for, you, your sister, your brother. Please, darling, try to understand the position we're in. The Benjamins are a great family. They have 3 children just like us, and they all live comfortable lives. More than comfortable." "I'm happy the way I am." That's the only reply Sophia knew how to give. She wasn't beyond understanding where her parents were coming from. However, what bothered her the most was that her parents didn't give importance to her autonomy anymore. "You haven't been happy even for a day since you came back, Sophia." Her mother looked at her, a concerned expression across her face. Her mother's words left her in a state of mental paralysis. She wasn't happy. It was true. Mrs. White looked at her daughter, worrying about ways the brunch could go wrong. Mr. and Mrs. White had put in a lot of effort to get the Benjamin family to notice them. After all, arranged marriages are thought to be a thing of the past, at least on this side of the map. It wasn't like she couldn't see her daughter's misery. What took over her was her belief that marriage was the answer, that somehow a life partner would make her happy. Like Mr. White made her happy. Jason White was a simple man. After fathering 3 children with his wife, he chose to lead a laid-back life. Did he do it for the sake of his wife's need for control, or did he always intend on living life in the background? We'll never know. Regardless of his hopes and dreams, Mr. White never let his wife complain. He provided her with whatever he could because he put his family's priorities before his own. Sophia knew that about her father. She also knew that the guy who would walk through that door wouldn't be like him. Why? Because men don't come as good anymore, do they? Even in her clouded state, Sophia knew that an arranged marriage wasn't the answer. She wasn't going to let some guy's cubicle job, white Honda, or white mother dictate her life. She looked up only to find that her mother had already left the room. Sophia got out of bed and glanced over at the dress her mother picked out for her. Pale blue, lace-trimmed collar, cinched waist. Perfect, like her mother. It was almost time. Sophia softly made her way down the stairs, eyeing the fresh carnations blooming by the coat hanger. She could tell her parents had put in all their efforts. They really wanted this to work. She wasn't done with the flowers when she noticed her younger sister folding the napkins for the table. On a good day, she would swoon over the smell of a freshly baked quiche, but today, the scent in the air felt heavy. It sat on her shoulders, weighing her down with every effort her mother was putting into something she did not want to happen. She dared to peek into the kitchen to see her mother racing from one corner to another with her bright green oven mitts. Her father and brother were in another corner, stocking up the fridge with wine spritzers and orange juice. She hadn't seen such family functionality in over a decade. Maybe it really was time for her to leave her childhood home. Sophia receded from the kitchen, careful not to be seen by her family. She didn't want to engage in a conversation, not after the one she just had with her mother. On her way out, she caught her reflection in a mirror. The great wall mirror had been around for a while now, so clear that it could tell you your deepest secrets. She stopped, turned, and looked at herself. She eyed herself in the dress her mother chose for a boy that her family chose. What did she choose? What was her input? Rather, where was her input? She looked at the dress, long enough to cover her thighs, but high enough for her knees to peek into the world, and she couldn't help but think about how if things had worked out with George, she would be standing next to him instead of staring into the unforgiving mirror. George. First love George. Blue-eyed, beige-crowned George. The doorbell chimes once again. "They're here!" yelled her mother from the kitchen. "Weren't they supposed to be here at 1 o'clock? It's barely 12:45, her father added. Amidst the chaos of setting the brunch table, running around, straightening dresses, retouching hair, and pillow fluffing, Sophia stood still. She turned and looked at the door, wishing the ground would swallow her whole.